I did not confront him the night I found the messages. I marinated the chicken, set the table for two, and spent the entire evening pretending love might still be recoverable if I acted like less of a burden. People like clean betrayal stories. They like a screenshot, a slammed door, a dramatic line that divides life into before and after. But some endings do not happen like that. Some endings happen in a kitchen with rosemary on your hands and your phone face down on the counter. Because if you look at it one more time, you might stop functioning altogether. Evan and I had been together long enough for our life to look solid from the outside. Not flashy, not unstable, not the kind of couple people whisper about at birthdays. We had the kind of relationship that gets described with words like good, steady, normal, which I have since learned are sometimes just polite words for unexamined. We rented the upper floor of a narrow duplex with old windows that rattled every time the bus passed. He worked in operations for a regional supply company. I handled client onboarding for a small design studio. He liked routines. I liked that he liked routines. He took the same mug to work every morning. I always forgot where I left my keys. He kept extra batteries in a labeled drawer. I kept receipts folded into coat pockets and called it a filing system. That is how a lot of love looks in the middle. Not fireworks, compatibility. The story you tell yourself is that two people do not build that many ordinary habits together unless they are also building a future. Maybe that is true sometimes. And maybe sometimes routines are just efficient camouflage. The messages found me by accident, which I know is how almost every story says it begins, but accidents have their own textures. Mine began with a dead laptop charger. Evan had taken mine to work earlier in the week because his office one had stopped connecting. That Thursday, he came home late, showered quickly, and fell asleep on the couch while half watching a documentary he insisted was relaxing. Around 10, I needed to send a revision note before morning. My own charger was still in his bag. I remember trying to unzip it quietly because I did not want to wake him. That detail embarrasses me now. Even in the moment that would split my life open, I was still trying to be considerate. His phone was in the front pocket. It lit up when I moved the bag, not with anything obscene. Not with a lipstick emoji or a naked photograph or some movie version proof so obvious it would have protected me from doubt. Just a preview. Are you still going to tell her after the lease thing is settled? No name in the preview, just a number he had not saved. There are sentences that make your body understand danger before your mind agrees. After the lease thing is settled. It was not the language of flirting. It was the language of planning. That is what made me open it. Not curiosity. Triage. The thread was not long, which somehow made it worse. Long threads have room for confusion, drama, intoxication, apology theater. Short threads often mean the truth has already become routine. The woman wrote like someone used to waiting for reassurance. He wrote like someone managing an inconvenience. He said I had been emotional lately. He said he was trying to time things in a way that would not make housing complicated. He said he did not want to look cruel. He said he had cared about me for a long time but had been unhappy for months. Months. That word kept echoing. Months while we ordered takeout on Fridays. Months while we renewed the internet contract. Months while he asked if we should finally replace the mattress topper. Months while he kissed my forehead in passing, the way people do when they want credit for tenderness without having to stop moving. There were other messages. Not graphic, not even especially romantic. That almost hurt more. This was not fever, not some cinematic lapse. It was administration. He was reorganizing his life in calm little sentences and waiting for the paperwork around me to become less annoying. The lease thing. I sat on the kitchen floor because that was the nearest place my body could go that felt lower than panic. I kept scrolling even though I already knew enough. He had looked at apartments. He had told her he was trying to save money before making a move. He had said I would probably be sad but would eventually understand that things had not felt right for a while. Would probably be sad. There is a special humiliation in seeing your future grief discussed by someone who is still eating your groceries. I wish I could tell you I woke him up immediately. I wish I could tell you I threw the phone at his chest or marched out with a bag and a clean, cinematic sense of self-respect. Instead, I put the phone back exactly where I found it. Took the charger from his bag, closed the zipper. Then I stood there in the dark kitchen and tried to solve myself. That is the part. 1. Understand better now because of how many people in comment sections always say the same thing. Why didn't she leave right then? Why did she stay calm? Why did she cook dinner? Because panic does not always make you louder. Sometimes it makes you more obedient. Sometimes betrayal does not trigger rage first. It triggers review. What did I miss? What did I do wrong? What can I fix before the leaving becomes official? By midnight, I had built a theory that was small enough to survive. Maybe he had drifted because I had become difficult lately. Maybe I had been distracted. Maybe I complained too much about work. Maybe the apartment had felt heavy. Maybe I had stopped being fun in ways men never named directly, but always seemed to file somewhere. The next morning, he woke up cheerful. Not ecstatic, not guilty, just normal. Normal is one of the cruelest costumes betrayal wears. He asked whether I wanted coffee. I said yes. He made it too weak the way he always did when he was rushing. I drank it anyway. He kissed the top of my head on his way out and said he might be late because quarter end had turned everyone insane. I nodded like a woman in a hostage video who had not yet realized the hostage was her own dignity. At work, I could not keep a single thought assembled for more than 30 seconds. The words on my screen looked like they belonged to a language I had once known and recently lost. At lunch, I went into the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and reread the thread. This time, I noticed what I had missed the night before. Not in the texts. In myself. I was not searching for truth anymore. I was searching for a way to make the truth mean less. That evening, I stopped at the grocery store and bought the chicken thighs he liked when he wanted something actually filling. Fresh parsley. Lemons. The small potatoes that crisp faster. I have thought about that checkout line so many times. How ordinary I looked. How many women have probably stood under fluorescent lights, holding ingredients for a meal, while privately negotiating with devastation? When I got home, I cleaned the kitchen before I cooked. Then I cleaned it again while the chicken rested. By the time he walked in, the apartment looked calmer than it had in weeks. Candles lit. Music low. Table set. He looked surprised. Then pleased. That expression is still hard for me to remember. Because he believed he was receiving care. And I was staging a plea without using any of the words out loud. He asked what the occasion was. I said I just wanted us to have a nice night. There are moments in life when you hear your own voice and realize it is speaking from several floors below where your real self has gone. Dinner was almost unbearable in its normalcy. He talked about a shipping delay, a guy in finance who kept forgetting attachments, a client visit next week. I watched his face while he chewed and tried to locate the person from the messages inside the person at my table. But that was the problem. He was both the liar and the man asking for more salt. The planner of my replacement, and the person reminding me we were low on dish soap. People want betrayal to create obvious monsters because obvious monsters are easier to leave. But many betrayals are committed by ordinary people who still remember to compliment dinner. He told me the potatoes were perfect. I thanked him. That thank you still haunts me. Not because kindness is shameful. Because I was offering it as tribute. After dinner, while he showered, I stripped the bed and put on the linen sheets he liked best. I folded the blanket at the foot the way he once said made the room feel like a hotel. I stood back and looked at the bed as if presentation could compete with betrayal. That sounds pathetic when said plainly. Maybe it was. But heartbreak has a way of shrinking your ambitions quickly. By then, I was no longer trying to be loved. I was trying to be less leavable. The next few weeks were worse because they looked so functional. I did not confront him, I adapted. I stopped mentioning things that bothered me. I laughed faster at jokes that did not land. I answered I'm fine before he could even ask. I made the apartment easier to live in. I cleared the chair where he dropped his clothes. I paid the electric bill 2 days early. I stopped asking whether he would be home for dinner and started saying, "There's food if you want some." I became low maintenance with the intensity of a person training for survival. This is what the strongest reactions in stories like this usually understand. The comments are not just screaming, "Leave him." They are grieving the moment the betrayed person starts assisting the betrayal by making herself smaller in response to it. I do not say that to blame her, or to blame the version of me who did it. I say it because humiliation is not always loud. Sometimes it looks incredibly organized. One night, maybe 10 days after I found the messages, he came home carrying flowers from the discount stand outside the train station. Carnations. Not because I liked carnations. Because they were what was left. He said, Thought the place could use something cheerful. The place. Not you. Not us. Even then, I noticed language more than gesture. When someone has emotionally packed their bags before physically leaving, nouns start changing first. The place. The situation. How things have been. Everything gets softened into weather so nobody has to admit a person made a choice. I put the flowers in water and thanked him. Again. At some point, gratitude becomes a tragic reflex. My friend Layla noticed before anyone else. She asked me to get tea after work and spent 5 minutes talking about her own deadlines before she put her cup down and said, "You look like you're trying not to take up space in your own body." It was such a precise sentence that I almost cried from the relief of being seen accurately. I told her part of it. Not everything. Just enough. The messages. The woman. The dinner. The weeks of self-editing, I could not seem to stop. Layla did not react the way movies teach us to expect. She did not gasp. She did not demand his name with theatrical fury. She said, very quietly, "You know he already left, right?" There are truths that sound cruel only because they arrive before you are ready to stop bargaining. I said I knew. Which was only half true. I knew it intellectually. But some softer, more frightened part of me still believed there might be a test I could pass to reverse it. Layla asked whether I wanted him or whether I just did not want to be discarded. That question rearranged the room. Because I had spent so much energy trying to preserve my place in his life, that I had not asked whether I still respected the life I would be preserving. The turning point did not come from another text, or a lipstick stain, or a dramatic confession. It came from a spreadsheet. The following Sunday, Evan left for the gym and forgot his tablet on the coffee table. I was not even looking for anything. I truly was not. But the screen was open to a budgeting app, and one line item had been renamed. Post-split plan. Utilities. Storage unit. Moving van. Deposit. Everything estimated. Everything neat. Everything calm. The woman from the texts had not just been an emotional escape hatch. He had built a model, a timeline, a version of my sadness with rounded numbers beside it. That was the moment something inside me stopped begging. Not because the spreadsheet was more intimate than the texts, because it was colder. The texts still allowed room for fantasy. The spreadsheet did not. You cannot out-cook a budget. You cannot out-organize a contingency plan. You cannot become small enough to make someone honest. I packed that afternoon while he was gone. Not theatrically. Not vindictively. I packed like someone finally returning to herself in pieces. My documents first. Then, my grandmother's bracelet. Then, the blue mug I always used on Saturdays. Then, the framed print from the flea market he once said was too gloomy for the bedroom. I called Layla. She came over with boxes and did not ask for a speech. That may be one of the highest forms of love. Helping someone leave without requiring them to narrate the wound while they are still bleeding. I left him a note because I did not trust my face to hold the line if I stayed for the conversation in person. It said, "I know about the messages. I know about the apartment plans. I know about the budget. You did not stay because you loved me and got confused. You stayed because leaving cleanly was inconvenient. I will not help you do it from the inside anymore." Then I took 2 bags, 1 box, and the plant by the kitchen window that he had forgotten to water so often it had learned resilience without him. He called before I reached Leela Street. 3 times. Then 6. Then 12. I did not answer until later that night. Not because I was trying to punish him. Because I wanted the first words I heard from him after leaving to be his responsibility, not my panic. When I finally picked up, he sounded stunned. Not heartbroken. Stunned. Like a man who had spent so long managing a controlled collapse that he had forgotten the building might move before he was ready. He said it was not what it looked like. I asked which part. The woman. The lease timing. Or the spreadsheet called post-split plan. Silence. Then he said the sentence I think so many commenters would seize on in a story like this. I didn't know how to tell you without making things harder. Harder for whom? That was the whole relationship by the end. A pile of decisions optimized around his discomfort, with my pain treated as an unfortunate but manageable side effect. I told him the hardest part was never that he wanted to leave. People fall out of love. People fail. People become strangers in rooms they used to brighten. The hardest part was that he let me keep performing devotion in front of him While he privately discussed my reaction like weather, and budgeted for my heartbreak like furniture, he cried then. Or at least his voice did. I am no longer interested in deciding which late emotions are sincere. Sincerity after concealment is still late. And lateness counts. He asked if we could talk in person. I said maybe later, once I no longer felt responsible for making the conversation easier for him. That was the first honest sentence I had spoken on my own behalf in weeks. I wish I could end this by saying I felt instantly strong after that. I did not. I felt sick, untethered, embarrassed by my own previous obedience. I kept remembering stupid details. The parsley I chopped. The flowers in the jar. The way I thanked him for potatoes while he was planning a version of life that edited me out. But healing is strange. It does not always begin with confidence. Sometimes it begins with disgust, finally outranking hope. That is what happened to me. Not disgust at him alone, at the whole arrangement, at the role I had accepted the second I decided I would rather audition for mercy than insist on truth. I do not think the woman in the kitchen was weak. I think she was terrified, and I think terror makes people highly collaborative with their own diminishment. That is why stories like this travel. Not because infidelity is rare, because too many people recognize the quieter second wound. The one where betrayal gets inside your self-image and convinces you the solution is to become easier to abandon. It never is. If someone has already started explaining your sadness to another person as a logistical phase, the performance is over whether you know it or not. The kindest thing you can do then is stop setting the table for the version of love that has already left the room.
Thank you for watching. If this story pulled you in, do me one favor. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so the next one finds you the moment it drops. Remember, nothing is ever just what it seems. See you on the next one.